Thanks for your time, everyone. I'm here today to do a talk on hand hygiene. I just want to let you know that where the exits and entrances are to the building, so they're to our left, and the toilets are back through that left-hand side door and back behind us there. There's disability toilets as well. Thank you. Now, the reason for doing this online, it's part of the course that I'm doing for Cert 4, and it's part of the speaker program, but it's also, we've got, part of our course is to make reasonable adjustments, and under the current circumstances, we're making a reasonable adjustment today because we've got no one really significant in attendance, pardon the people that are filming. But so to start off today, I've got two handouts for you, and hopefully I can get this to everyone. The first one is how to wash your hands. There it is there. That one you'll hopefully receive in your pigeonhole. And also a feedback form. This is fairly important, and they are original documents, but if everyone who acknowledges that they've seen the video lets me know, and I can get them a copy of that to sign, but I won't have other copies, so I'll need them back. It's just a tick and flick. You can put some comments in if you like, but it's not super important. Okay, well, we might start off, I'll just run a small video, and the idea of this concept, and this is part of my anchor points, if you like, I'm calling it herding cats, because this is the environment I believe that our sector's working in at the moment. We're trying to negotiate our way around a virus, and we've got so many things going on in our lives. So if we just start that video pretty shortly, and we might be able to get a little bit of an insight of how we're all feeling.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know.
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
EDS, managing the complexities of the digital economy.
Referring to any action of hand cleansing. Effective hand, what is hand hygiene? Effective hand hygiene is the single most effective action to reduce healthcare associated infections. And that comes from Health Hygiene Australia. Thanks, Kate. So just some statistics around that. In 2015-16 financial year, Australia spent $160 billion on healthcare. We've got 94,000 beds, 61,000 of those are public and 33,000 are private. We've got 1,300 hospitals roughly in Australia, 700 or so are public and 603 are private. And hand hygiene is a very important part of that cost. And hospital-acquired infections are obviously there. The World Health Organization, they state that for every $6.50 you spend in a hospital, you get a benefit of over $1,000. Thank you. So the risks of poor hand hygiene. Microorganisms, they're readily to transmitted on healthcare workers' hands. It is estimated that around 200,000 hospital acquired infections are in Australian hospitals every year, and it is possible to reduce these by using effective infection prevention practices such as improved hand hygiene compliance. The research has shown that improving hand hygiene compliance is about human behaviour. That's all of us, the way we behave around our hands. Our organisational culture, we've obviously got a good culture in this organisation, and leadership, and that means leadership from all of us. So not just from our bosses. It means all of us, and as support workers, to our clients, and also our fellow peer workers. And it requires a multifaceted approach to achieve improved hygiene, hand hygiene. So what I mean by that multifaceted approach, that's that herding of cats. We've got so much going on in our lives, but we've just got to keep an eye on the basic principles of hand hygiene. Thanks, Carrie. Here's a few stats that I found really sobering just recently, and these come from the World Health Organization. It's about hospital beds in the OECD. So the OECD is a breakdown of 40 nations, and I'll just point out a couple of the points there. The OECD, people who are not aware, is the Organisation of Economic Cooperation and Development, and it's a great indicator. This list is a great indicator of the health of your health system. So each of those figures along the top, it's hard to make them out, but what they mean are the hospital beds over the last 5 years. So people may be interested. I'm going to point at this one. There's Australia there. They're 21 of 40. South Korea are up the top almost. They're number 2. And in Europe, we've got Italy, number 26. And those two nations are both in very different positions. South Korea, you would say that they probably have the gold standard for their response to the coronavirus issues, and Italy have got some real challenges there. But if you look at the beds, and there it is there, 12.3 in South Korea to 3.2 in Italy, and that's per 1,000 beds. But the real sobering news for me is if we scan down and we go to the United States, is number 32. And if you just move over to me, Carrie, I'll try to do a visual exam. And if we're looking at the globe, there's 5 countries from the Americas there in that bottom 9. I'll just give you an example. You've got Canada, the United States, Mexico, Colombia down here, and then down at the bottom on the angle, you would have Chile. And dotted all around them is a group of small countries, small American countries. And that'll be the challenge going forward. Can those countries dodge the bullet? That'll be the interesting thing. So thanks, Gary. So the next photo is just on the reasons for poor hygiene. You'll hear a lot of these reasons that people might come up: the environment, the location, and the availability of sinks. One of the key issues there has been even just locally. I just noticed that some of our clients have their soaps not right beside their taps. That's a good idea to have them handy. If they're too far away, you might move away, but we've got to make sure we've got available sinks. Organisational, we've got to make sure that we've got high profile role models. Physiological, the perceived lack of time. Psychological, a perceived lack of time for hand hygiene. One of our big traps is we're so busy, have we got time to wash our hands? Well, we've just got to make time now. Education, and one example there is just the misconceptions of when you should do hand hygiene and how it should be performed. So if we get the same template, hopefully we can get through those issues together. And the physical factors, some people will have skin irritations or dryness, and that may be a preventative from them for having poor hygiene. Thanks, Gary. So here's a miner. That's a miner, a young miner. So look, I would just put this slide in just as a bit of a step into this, but I'd ask the question, does it pass the hand hygiene? And of course, hand hygiene at that time was not important. We're talking over 130 years ago. If we move to the next slide, we'll give a little bit of an example of man's capacity to avoid hand washing. And there's the Cornish pasty, and there's some young underground miners who would have worked in the mines, and the Cornish pasty was developed because they needed food, and they put it into a pasty, their meat and vegetables in a pasty, but it was a food that could be developed so they didn't have to wash their hands. So that crust around the outside there, just point to it, along the outside was disposable. So they held that in their hand, they ate the food, and then they threw the crust away. So we've come a long way, but people still do anything to avoid washing their hands. Thanks, Kate. So here's a chart here now of some of the areas that are missed with hand washing, and you can see those green areas, the lifelines, the valleys between the fingers, very easily to miss, and it's very easy, and the backs of the fingernails, and there's also a bit area just cut off there, which is the back of the wrist, on the forewrist, almost where your watch would go. That's an area that's missed, and I thought I might do a visual demonstration now with my hands and see. So I've got some gloves on here, and imagine this paint. They usually say, you'll hear it from time to time, don't do this at home. Well, I would say do this at home. It's a good fun exercise. I've got children, they'll probably get a bit of a kick out of it. So I'll just try to put the same amount of paint on my hands as I would if I was just washing my hands. So I start off by massaging the area, and I'm covering the area with my hands, okay? Obviously, I've only covered the palms of my hands. Now we go to the backs of the hands, which is the hard area. So we work to the back of the hand, right? We're covering that area really good. And we go to the other hand, and we're covering that back of the hand. Okay? Now, most of us would probably think with wet hands that we've covered the area, but let's have a look at that and compare that with that. If you just scan back to that picture there, thanks, Carrie. And my hands are not totally dissimilar to the unaffected areas, and that's just two of the things. And I've almost used my 20 seconds up. So I've got to start getting serious about getting the soap around my hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a monkey grip, get into it, and get those tips of the fingers. Now the thumbs still haven't been done, so let's get into those thumbs. And the areas that I said about near where your watch is, see the backs of the wrists? And it's ironical because that's probably one of the key areas where we come in contact a lot with surfaces. So we rub those hands across there, and you see, I know that I've been talking and stopping, but you can see that that's taking more than the 30 seconds, and hopefully I've got nice black hands. So we've covered our area. So just keep that in mind. Obviously you want to do a minimum of 20 seconds, and how you get to that 20 seconds will be up to you. I've got a couple of suggestions that we could go to later on, but you'll come up with something yourself. Thanks, Gary. We'll go to the next one. So the next slide here, I don't have available today. I was hoping to have copies out because this is the latest. But I do have just with me, and that was the handout that I spoke about a little bit earlier on. This handout here, how to wash and dry your hands with soap and water. The advantage with the other one, it's got how to use rubs and sanitizers. So that was the advantage with that. Yes, and it just says there, the main comments are, during the rubbing process, pay particular attention to the backs of the hands, which I've just demonstrated, and the fingers, the fingernails, the fingertips, and the webbing between the fingers. Okay, antibacterial soaps for the hands and for the body. Now, I just thought I'd give you an example of them, and Carrie can come across here, but the first thing I'd say is don't be fooled by the cross. Now, here's one with the cross, and it is actually a antibacterial, and these ones are not. Now, it doesn't mean to say that those soaps aren't any good, but remember, if you want to use an antibacterial, you've got to go for the one with a cross. Some of the brands will have the cross in their label, like that particular brand there, and that's quite valuable. Now myself, I understand that soaps work well, but if I've got poo on my hands, I'm going to choose to go for an antibacterial. I can't see past a little bit of poo. I'm going to wash my hands really well with antibacterial. So it's great to have that on hand. Okay, so what is 20 seconds? Well, here's a little spiel. It can be anything. It could be singing to yourself happy birthday. But here's one that's just come up recently on Facebook, and it's the opening phrases to Star Trek. So we've got space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to go boldly where no one has gone before. And it just says there at the end, you can hum the tune to the song afterwards. So we move on to sanitisers. Now I guess if I had an audience, I'd ask the question, when do we use sanitisers? And we use sanitisers really when our hands are clean and they're free from soil matter. We don't use them when you've got dirty hands. So just remember that. They do have a use by date or a best before date. Usually, most of the stuff you buy off the shelf will have up to 2 years, and it's no real worries, but it can evaporate and deteriorate over time. So once you start using a sanitizer, it's good. You might as well keep using it right through the process. Now, the other thing I just found out on the weekend was you really should only use a sanitizer up to 4 times, or once you get to 4 times, once you get to the 5th time, you should wash it off. Because what you're doing is you're having fats build up on your hands, and although that alcohol is evaporated and you've killed the bugs, you've actually got fats in it and it will store other bacteria. So just remember that. Once you get to about that 4th or 5th time, you need to move on. Some of the myths associated with sanitisers, with people making their own or whatever. Can I make vodka? Can I make sanitizer from vodka? Well, no, you can't really make an effective one out of vodka because it says that it's 80% proof, but it's actually only 40% alcohol. So just don't be misled around that track. And also, some people will say, well, let's make it stronger. A sanitizer is 60%, why don't I have 100%? And in reality, what you're doing is you've got 100% alcohol, all you're going to do is it's going to evaporate that quickly. It won't actually kill the bacteria, and it'll only cause your skin to become dry and irritated. So glove use, there's a lot of information out there on glove use, and I'd recommend anybody who's got any concerns about how they should use their gloves. We're going to go to a YouTube in a second, but you just remember that you've got plenty of resource there, but this will give you a little bit of an insight. If you could come over here, thanks Carrie, I'll just point out, this is a no-name brand from an imported one, and on the back there's really just a heap of writing. Some of the more reputable brands will have actually sizes or indicators on them, and it's probably one of the annoying things about buying gloves is we don't have a regular indicator. And these are packaged in Australia. It wouldn't be hard for them to put a regular thing. I think the best one is that one where you put your hand up against it, because these come from Asia. Those sizes. This one doesn't say what size it is, but some of them sizes are just, they're not what they say, or they don't equate to our size. So we might move on now to a short YouTube, which will just take care of a few areas of gloves. That'll be what size to pick, and why you pick a size, and how you don them, and how you doff them.
The first step is selecting the right size glove. A glove that is too small is prone to tearing and puts stress on the user's hand, which can cause fatigue and injury. You can see this glove is too small by the stretch marks that are formed when the fingers are straightened. A glove that is too large will cause a loss in dexterity. The excess material creates folds, extends beyond the fingers, and can become glove fragments that enter in food. Remove any hand and wrist jewelry. Nail length should be below your fingertip to avoid snagging the glove. Thoroughly wash your hands, and in a clean area, select the appropriate size glove. Hold the glove in one hand, begin to insert the other hand, spread your fingers, and pull the glove towards your wrist to cover as much skin as possible and secure the glove. After the glove is on, check to make sure there are no holes or tears. Repeat those steps for the other glove. And there you have it. We have our disposable gloves on and we're ready to get to work. Pinch one glove at the wrist and remove glove by pulling away from your body. Continue holding the glove you just removed in your gloved hand. Slide fingers of your bare hand inside the cuff of the glove you're still wearing. Pulling away from your body, peel off the second glove, turning it inside out and leaving the first glove inside as you remove it. Dispose the glove safely and wash your hands before touching any other surfaces.
Group exercise under the current circumstances, this with social isolation, it couldn't be done, but that's fine. That's just a reasonable adjustment that we've made to the program. So our next slide is just a quick summary of where we've been today and just what we've done. So I'll just go through some of the points that we had. So for effective hand washing, we need at least 20 seconds and maybe more time. It's about human behaviour and leadership. Remember, leadership is not just our bosses, it's all of us, and the culture. I do stress again, we're in an organisation that does have a good, strong culture. We need to maintain that by assisting each other throughout the process. It's a multifaceted approach. That's that herding of the cats. We've got to keep that in mind. Sanitisers, they're not a cure for all. And clean hands, you've got to have clean hands to start with. And then remember that we wash after 4 to 5 uses. And just on the gloves, finally, so we make sure that we've got the right size gloves. We're doing correct donning and doffing technique, and hopefully we can all have a healthy outcome. Thank you. Now we're going to do a little exercise with contamination. So we're going to see how well Monique, a wonderful assistant here today, is going to cope with a little bit of contamination. Now, I'm going to say that this is vomit. So Mon, could you put your hands forward? We're just going to, can you just take half a step back? We want to observe our social distancing. Okay, so there's this is vomited all over her. Okay, there we go. Hold your hands together perhaps. You can put your eye. Now, Mon, walk towards the sink and you're going to go around the area and just we'll observe Monique and see if she contaminates any of the areas as she goes past. So she's walking towards the unit, she's going in through the bathroom. Keep watching her, I'll move around, and she's got to the sink. And she's opened up the sink and she's starting to wash her hands. Now we're going to wash her. And remember that technique we talked about a little bit earlier. We're washing the backs of the hands, the forehands, and those awkward areas, maybe the thumbnails. Yes, she's got a good monkey grip on her. That's great. And those thumbs and the wrists. She looks like she's covered the area pretty well. She may have even sang happy birthday to herself. She's going to dry her hands now. And we'll do a little exercise and see how effective that hand washing was and whether there was other contaminated sites. Okay, so Mon's just washed her hands. I think her technique was quite good. Let's zoom in now in almost semi-darkness and have a look at those hands and see if there's any spots there she's missed. I can't see much there. Looks pretty good. What about around the jewellery and the wrist? Remember those areas that we quite often miss around the thumbnails? She looks like she's got a good technique. That's good. The other issue was for Monique was, did she contaminate a few other sites? So let's go around the room, taking her route that she took, and let's see if there's any contaminated areas. So there's a bit on the floor. It looks like she's got a bit of sick on that chair. There it is there. A little bit more on the floor, is it? Yes. Yes, we've got a handrail there with it's contaminated. Further as we go past me, the actual toilet handrail, that's got a bit of contamination on it as well. There's 2 points there. And the tap, if you recall, she used her hand on the tap, where she could have used the elbow there, but she's used her hand. And I can see it from my side. I'm not sure if it's on that side there, but it's quite visible. So the important lesson there to learn is it's not just washing your hands, it's eliminating contamination spots. So thanks very much, Mon. Thanks, Carrie. And we'll see you on the flip side. Thank you.